Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of So VT Book Talk. I'm your host, Caren McVicker, and I am thrilled this season to welcome Paige Vignola, Assistant Director of the Manchester Community Library, as my co-host. Hi, Paige.
Hey, it's great to be back.
I know, it's great to see you. And we are kicking off this season with a local author, Thomas Henry Pope. Tom is a novelist, journalist, teacher, and actor. His thrillers, dystopian tales, and literary fiction have won the Nautilus Award, the American Legacy Book Award, and the Page Turner Award. He gives the settings in his novel as much agency to influence events as he does to his characters. And to capture the speech, dress, and humanity of the people who appear in them, he travels to the countries where the stories unfold. His previous incarnations were a singer-songwriter, builder, EMT, and football coach. A lifelong Buddhist, he teaches meditation and lives in Vermont, where the peepers sing. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad to have you here.
It's great.
And Paige, Tom and I were able to talk on the phone last week, and we were sort of discussing, did we want to have him just talk about his latest novel, or did we maybe want to dig into some deeper questions about writing?
Ooh, that's fun.
I know. So we were going to kind of throw out to you, Tom, why do writers write? Why do you write?
Because there's something bursting inside that has to do with the way I look at being alive, seeing the world as it is, wondering if it can be different, wondering why things are that way, what happens if I shift what I see, what are the results of that. So that's all kind of the basis of creating a story, really.
And when you look at your body of work, were there instances like inspirational spark moments for each one of these novels? Was there just a point you could say, yep, that's when I had that idea, or that's when it started building inside me?
Absolutely, yeah. With each one of them, of my books here, was very, very strong moment to start. My latest book, the first thought I had about it was the climactic moment, just bam. And so then I had to figure out how they got there and why. and how would that be fun for people to read, and what might they get out of it.
So does that put you more on the pantser side than the planner side? Because there's definitely the two categories of approach.
That's a great question, but I don't think the pantser or planner comes later. Okay. If you don't have inspiration, you can pants without inspiration. That's what it means. You just sort of go, oh, that looks good, maybe I'll go with that. But no, I'll have inspiration to tell a story somehow, which means to figure out who are these characters? What is their challenge? Where are they going? What might they have? Then the whole point is, what might they share? If they don't have anything to share, that's going to be a lousy book.
So that actually leads me to another question. So are you driven more by character development and people, or are you driven more by events and plot lines?
That's great. I'm a literary fiction author, using genre as a platform. So it's very character driven, and yet I'm not strictly a literary fiction author where you can get people together over Thanksgiving dinner for 300 pages, and that can be fun, but there's something going on in the outside world always in my books that are influencing the characters, that are driving the characters either towards something or away from something.
And would you say, over the course of your writing, that there are any themes that run through all of them, or are they very, very disparate?
I would say yes to both. The themes that run through my books have to do with inhumanity, to humans, inhumanity, how they reach out through the mire of chaos and hurt in the world to become whole. There's a healing aspect in my books, and in the sense of corruption, things falling apart. And I have to say that people die in my books.
Okay. It's good. There's a warning there. Well, that happens in a lot of books. So we talked a little bit so why do people write? You write, you've got something bursting inside you. It has to come out. You have to get it out. There's no way to keep it in. But the actual process of writing can be it can be isolating. It can be really hard. Like, how do you manage kind of that whole process of birthing that idea, of getting it out of you?
Yeah, you say it can be. Is
It
there,
always
is there a
is.
way that it can't be? 'Cause
Not that I know.
I want to sign up for that plan. It is hard.
It's hard.
Knowing it's hard, I proceed. I'm not looking for an easy way. So I'm also not hard on myself because it's already hard. I'll do my best every day. There it is. That's that day. Then there's always, as they say, you cannot edit a blank page.
Correct.
So I've written a bunch of pages. They're going to need work. It doesn't bother me at all. Editing's fun. It really is. Creating the story, creating the characters that populate a novel, understanding their interaction, and then coming up with the scenes that show who they are. That's the real creative work, because that's coming out of nothing. You have an inspiration. Somebody's on a mountaintop, and at the end they go, hooray. What's the process for that? And this process, does it matter to readers?
And how do you make that determination? What are you looking at when you think about what matters to readers? What is it that makes a story both compelling and satisfying in the end to a reader?
That's great. I would be too arrogant to say that I know what readers want, but I write to understand what I want. And I don't stop until I'm completely satisfied that the language and the scenes go in that direction.
I know I had a writer friend say to me once, write the book that you would love to read. Like, make sure when you read it, you're like, oh, I would love this book. I wish someone would recommend this book to me.
That's right.
And I thought that was a good piece of advice.
Yeah, which puts me more on the literary fiction side. In genre fiction, in my short-sighted way of looking at it, it's very proscribed. These are the kind of characters you have. These are their challenges, and you know that there's on page 58 something's going to happen, or what have you. And I don't approach writing that way at all. I let my characters tell the story, and if they're going to take off and go somewhere in the middle, I'll follow them to find out why.
Right.
And then in the editing process, I'll say that was a lousy idea, or oh, I, the author, never thought of that. Thank you for telling me. If you know what I mean.
Do your characters ever wake you up in the middle of the night? Do they talk to you? Like, how alive do they become for you?
They don't keep me up at night. I take notes during the day what they're doing. That's my writing process. They turn to me and say, "This is what I'm saying." Take it down. There's a lot of that aspect. Rather than directing, there's two ways to write. One is to tell your characters what to do, and that's an author's blah blah blah. The other, I think, is to have the character inform the author why she's so special, or why she's needs so much healing.
I think readers can tell that difference very easily as well.
I do too.
I'm not a writer, but I am an avid reader, and it's always the characters that, who are driving the story for me are the ones that become most engaging. Right?
That's right.
And then you read what an author has to say about that, and they're like, oh yeah, and when I met this character, I didn't know who they were, and then they showed me, and obviously it becomes, they're obviously more fleshed out that way because they have developed themselves as opposed to have been described.
My measure of a good author is one that I never think of from the first page to the last. If I find in the writing there's a passage that says, oh, the author's talking to me here, letting me know how great she is.
Done.
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 And that's really hard. You talk about what's really hard in writing is to get out of the way.
Yes.
And yet every word is coming from us. coming through our.
Through us. I'm not sure sometimes it's really coming from me. Sometimes it really it feels like you're just,
Yeah. Did I say from?
you said originally and then you said through.
It's through.
Yeah.
And our job is to, we edit as we write. Every, oh no, that's not how it would be, sentences come half written, dump, 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 until the language starts to sing. And as a character gets more fleshed out, then her song becomes more integrated. And then we know that she's never gonna swear.
Right.
Or that's all she does. We
Right.
learn. We learn. And how does that affect him?
Right. So what is your process? Do you have a daily routine? Do you set a goal for either how much time you write or a word count goal? Do you track anything? Let us inside.
Earlier I said I'm really kind to myself.
Okay.
So most writers do a regimented thing, as far as I know. I do not.
Okay.
Right now I'm in a writing process, and I'm writing every single day. You can say that that's prescribed. No, that's following the passion. My schedule's opened up. I know what I'm going to write. I go for it. But how it happens, that has to do with me and the characters, and how I feel, how they feel, and I just go until there's a natural stopping point, or I cannot function anymore, or what have you. But I don't have a word count goal. No.
Okay.
You probably know that if you have half a page that is an unforgettable page, you don't need 4,000 words that day.
Right.
I don't write 4,000 words ever. But
That's a big day for anybody.
that's a big day. But, sometimes I've spent a couple of hours on a sentence or two.
Yeah.
And because it makes the book sing. And it's like perfect.
Do you ever experience writer's block? And what would you do if you're letting your characters drive you and they're not speaking to you? How do you I guess make your way through that impediment?
My characters are always going to speak to me.
Yeah.
I have no writer's block. It's a matter of inviting. Now, writer's block, I think, has to do with the writer. It's not the characters. Now, if we're going to actually be dualistic about this and who's telling the story,
Right.
the writer's upset, right? I'm not good enough. I didn't like what I did yesterday. Oh, I'm worried about what my agent's going to think. All that stuff.
Yeah.
That's just added on, so I throw that out. And be kind to my process, like, okay, well, maybe, who knows how much it's going to be today? Who
Right.
knows?
So have you had any advice to give to someone who was maybe at the beginning of this process, who maybe has that feeling inside, I need to get this story out of me? Like, what would that advice be to someone who's thinking about starting to write?
Learn your craft. First thing is, what is writing? What's good writing? And write a lot and assess it a lot. Do not be afraid of feedback. Absolutely.
That's really good advice.
I love to be edited.
I do too.
You know,
that was the biggest surprise for me embarking on this was I thought I had no idea I would love it so much because you just want it to be the best it can be.
That's right. And if an editor says something that your character knows is wrong, you disregard it.
Right.
But the feedback, to make you as the intermediary, the author, it allows you the flexibility to say, oh yeah, it could have been like that. So some editors have given me great feedback.
That's excellent. Well, if there was one of your books, if people are interested in sort of diving into your work, do you have one book you might recommend that they get started with so they can kind of see how Thomas Henry Pope writes?
You asked me this before.
I did.
Which is why this book is sitting up here like this.
All my trade secrets.
Yeah. And why I would choose that, I can't say. It is the most reviewed book.
Okay.
It's won It's won 4 awards. It was my second book.
Okay.
It was published first, interestingly enough. And I think what I like about it the most and why I think it might be interesting to people, it's a thriller that does not follow the cut and dried route of thrillers.
Ooh, that is exciting.
It's a genre fiction in the sense that, there's a journalist becomes a spy without a country. He's working against both superpowers to reveal some hidden secret from 50 years earlier.
Excellent.
And yet, his wife plays a dominant role in the whole process. And you don't find that in thrillers. So there's this literary aspect and the genre aspect
Awesome.
together.
And that's Imperfect Burials.
Imperfect
that we're talking
Burials.
about. Excellent. Well, Tom, we're so excited that you could join us today.
Oh,
What a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move into our segment called Last Now Next, which is where Paige and I talk about a book we just read, what we're reading now, what we're looking forward to reading next. Do you want to stick around and join us for that?
I do, and I'm going to go last.
You're going to go last.
Or second, whatever's best.
Okay.
We
Paige,
want to know more about Paige.
we want to know more about Paige. Paige, I think you're taking us out here.
Okay, if
You're
I'm
up.
starting us off.
Yeah.
I have become recently obsessed with a series of books called The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon.
Ooh.
So this is an author, her name is Beth Brower, and it is a series of books. This is book 8, which I was waiting for a very long time. It came out just before Christmas. A series of books that are written in the style of a journal from a young woman in Victorian London, 1883, and it's just delightful. It's not heavy, it's not serious, it's the type of book where the characters are clearly leading the author as opposed to the author writing the characters. Every character is simply wonderful. You fall in love with everybody, even the antagonists, even the horrific people involved. You're like, you're still just such a marvelous character. Again, this is book 8. I started with book 1. A friend of mine gave it to me. I'm like, oh, that's not bad. I read book 2. I'm like, I need to read everything ever from Emma M. Lyon.
Okay.
So I bring this one up as book 8. I just finished reading that one. I have now gone through and read all 8 books again for a second time after having read it. That's how amazing I think she is.
That's an obsession.
And then I went and I subscribed to her Substack because she has journal entries that are told from the characters' perspectives of the smaller characters within the story. So that's my last.
Okay.
My current book is one that I'm not even sure why I picked up. I work in a library, obviously, and so therefore sometimes I will just be looking through the catalog. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting, put it on hold. And I don't remember that I've done that, and it shows up on my desk, and I'm told, like, oh, well, you ordered this book. Well, that's what happened with this one. This is The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wasteland. It is not quite sci-fi, not quite drama, very character-driven. I'm very much into character-driven works. It is dystopian in the sense that the world came crashing to an end in a way that was naturally formed, and Siberia was cut off from the rest of the world, and there is a Trans-Siberian train that goes from Beijing to St. Petersburg, no, to Moscow, and that's one of the only ways of getting across, and all kinds of wasteland-type creatures exist out in this area. When I read the jacket cover, it kind of reminded me of one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes, so I was like, okay, I'll read this. I'm really enjoying it. It's not at all what I thought it was going to be, but I am definitely really enjoying it.
That's
So,
great.
my next, I don't have with me because that's one of those ones I put on hold at the library and I'm waiting for it to come in. It is a book that I never would have chosen for myself, but a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to participate in a book group. I said, sure. She says, this is what we're reading. It's called The Cloisters. It's by Katie Hayes. It is apparently a thriller. That is not my genre. I do not read mystery. I do not read thriller. However, I am a medievalist by background and by trade, and any mystery that's going to take place in the cloisters, which is kind of my favorite place in the world to be, I'm like, okay, you know what? Fine, I'll read this one. So that is next on my list.
Okay, great. Oh, that a lot to dig in there. That sounds awesome. Well, my last book was When the World Tips Over by Jandy Nelson. And this is technically a YA novel. She has a first novel out, which I had not read. And this was gifted to me because Jandy has a little bit of a Southern Vermont tie-in. Her brother and his wife live here, and I'm friends with her brother's wife. So I got this book, had no idea what to expect. But this book is just, it's brimming with love and generational family secrets and enchantment and curses, and it's just wild. But I love, there was one reviewer who said, nobody writes about hating everything and loving everything and doing art and living life and family and romance and identity and everything in the world that's good, like Jandy Nelson.
Wow.
So I was like, I'm going to read this book, but I adored it. And it's a big book, but it flew by. So it was amazing. And I know it's YA, but sometimes this is a great book. So I really loved it.
YA does not make it a good read. I mean, like,
No.
there's some YA books that I absolutely adore.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I know.
have to be adult to
It
be
doesn't.
fun. Yeah.
Well, and it's pretty, there's some adult themes in this, so it's more on the adult side, I think, of YA, but what a trip. It was just really great. And right now I am listening, because I'm always listening to something too, so I'm listening to Ina Garten's Be Ready When the Luck Happens, and so, and it's a memoir, and she reads it herself, and so she's the Barefoot Contessa. She became, the world-renowned queen of sort of easy, casual, and elegant entertaining. But it's lovely because it's just the story of how she wound up where she is. And it's a love story between her and her husband as well. So I'm really enjoying listening to that. You sort of can't help but smile while you're listening to it. So that's very nice. And then I just started Permission by Alyssa Altman. And this is one of the craft books that was recommended by our instructors for the upcoming Southern Vermont Writers Conference. And Alyssa is now, actually, this book comes out in March, and she is going to come to Manchester and do a talk, and I'll have more information on that next month. But it is fascinating. So just from the jacket cover, it says, without fail, almost every writer, new or experienced, has faced dire questions of permission and story ownership. There is something that they want to write about, that they need to write about, yet they can't. They have been warned not to. They might be paralyzed with shame, threatened with shunning, chastened into silence. But even if what they need to write about has also defined them and their worldview, but what if they did? What if you did? So I've just started it, and I'm really excited to see what she's talking about and to meet her in March when she comes to speak. So that's really exciting. And up next for me is The Briar Club by Kate Quinn, which is sort of a bestseller right now, and a lot of people know Kate Quinn's work. But so many people have recommended this to me because it's set in a boarding house, and my book was set in a boarding house. And the boarding house, I think, is one of the characters, maybe the narrator of part of it.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'll read it. So that's next up on my list. But I guess it's really a story about how all these different people come together in this living situation. And then there is some piece of it that's a thriller. So I don't read a lot of thriller, but that's what's next for me. And now you're up, Tom.
All right. So I handle this differently because as a writer, you didn't mention historical fiction, but all of these have an element of history, all of them. So that involves a lot of research. And I do travel to connect with the place, the language, the people, but it also involves a ton of research. The current book I'm on is the most complicated one I've ever done. And this is what I finished recently. This is just one of many, It's called Black Lamb and Gray Falcon by Rebecca West, written in before World War II. She had a few things to say about Central Europe.
Okay.
And this is one of my recent books as an author, because I needed to do this. I have about 4 times the number of pages involved in studying for my current book.
Wow.
That's 1,000 pages, and that's just how it goes. That's part of writing and reading. I don't have, while I'm writing, I'm not going to distract myself necessarily with a similar book, and I don't have time for extra.
Yeah.
So what I'm very excited to go back to is a book by Peter Matheson called In the Spirit of Crazy Horse. I don't know if you know it, but it is his investigation as to the shootout at the Pine Ridge Reservation.
Right.
And since we just had Leonard Peltier released his commuted sentence, I want to go back and read that. It's an extraordinary piece of work. He is about my favorite author.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I have nothing on my docket except writing right now.
That's so
So
great.
mea culpa.
That sounds like that's good news for us. Well, Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I am delighted to meet you both. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
So Paige, why don't you bring us up to speed on some of the events that will be happening at the Manchester Community Library in February?
As always, there are quite a few, so I had to kind of pare it down and just select just a couple.
Okay.
First and foremost would be on February 1st, Saturday, we have our Take Your Child to the Library Family Fun Day. We do these intermittently throughout the year. We always do one in February for Take Your Child to the Library Day. We will have art and crafts. We will have, a fire pit out back with, making s'mores. We will have a musical performance by local musicians. We will have library scavenger hunts. All kinds of things
Wow.
happening. Yeah. So it is and the sushi boat will be there, as will Willoughby's. So there's going to be good food, good local food, in addition to all that happening. So that's February 1st, Saturday. It's going to be an all-day thing.
Okay.
But another thing I'm really excited to tell people about is that if you live in the area and have for any amount of time, you've probably already heard about the Calliope Cafe. It's a BBA Music Department event. Well, Calliope Cafe is going to be at the library this year, and it's going to be on Tuesday, February 4th. Starts at 6:30. So it's basically a student-led talent show. It's also a fundraiser for the BBA Music Department in order to be able to send kids on field trips, all that sort of thing. So there's a small fee to get in. I think it's $5 for adults and $3 for students. But again, it is a fundraiser for the BBA Music Department. Very exciting. There's going to be some original compositions that are played, as well as some, doing covers. I believe there's some poetry going to be involved. So it should be a really fun evening. The opposite side of the fun evening for BBAs, we have the AARP tax preparation
Great.
workshop, right? So we're going, different ends of the spectrum, but we've been doing this now for a couple of years, where every Friday from actually all the way through February through up to tax day, on Friday mornings from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, there are professionals who are there in order to be able tax aid professionals to help people with preparing their taxes. You do need to be able to make a reservation, though. It's not just walk-in, and all that information is on the library website, so mclvt.org. Every second Saturday from now through the summer, the library has teamed up with Merck Forest and Farmland Center, right? So this Saturday, February 8th, is the second Saturday in February, we're going to be doing winter survival skills. So it's family-based, but it's really kind of geared towards kids. But winter survival skills. So have you ever wondered what you might do if you were stuck outside in the elements? Join Merck Forest and Farmland Center field educators as we learn how to build a fire and create fire starters. Fireside snacks are included. I'm assuming that means s'mores, but there could be other things involved. Additionally, we have on February 11th, we're here at GNAT, so this is also a GNAT event. The library is pairing up with GNAT and with the Manchester Journal in order to be able to hold the Manchester Select Board Candidate Forum.
Great.
Right, so this is an opportunity for community members to come to the library, sit down and listen to the select board, the individuals who are up for the seats on the select board, talk about the issues. The event will be hosted by Andrew McKeever, who we all know and love. And it is not required to have a ticket, but tickets are free, but recommended, just so that we have the ability to kind of space out.
Okay.
We expect that there's going to be a number of people who are interested in this. And then on February 20th, there's a special event for our weekly play group that we host with Northshire Day School. But this particular event is going to be in partnership with the Sunrise Family Resource Center, and that is going to be offering free hearing and vision screenings. So people who already attend the play group obviously will be there and they can do these free screenings. But if you don't already come to the play group and you are interested to bring your child in for a vision or hearing screening, then that is available to you on Thursday, February 20th from 10:30 to 12 o'clock. That'll be happening in the library.
Excellent. Wow. And always a busy month ahead. So
And I say, and those are just the
great.
highlights. There's plenty of other things going on. So
Oh,
always
my
check the
goodness.
website for more information.
That's great. Well, I want to put in a plug that the deadline to register for the inaugural Southern Vermont Writers Conference is coming up on March 1st. And fellow writer Kim Blaise-Gatteau and I are working with Green Mountain Academy for Lifelong Learning to bring this intimate writers conference to the Equinox Resort and Spa. And that will be in Manchester March 30th to April 4th. So there are still a few spots available. So if anyone is interested, you can find out more information at southernvermontwritersconference.org or at the GMAL website. And again, that deadline to register for the full conference is March 1st. And now I have a list of wonderful events to share from Northshire Bookstore. So they are going to be having story time with their booksellers every Friday in February, the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th at 10:30 a.m. So any moms looking to get kids out during the day, stop by Northshire. I think that story time will be great. Saturday, February 1st at 4 p.m., they have Paula Mounier and Sarah Stewart Taylor talking about the Knightswood. So this is an award-winning and USA Today best-selling mystery author. Paula Mounier will be joining Northshire to discuss her latest mystery with fellow author Sarah Stewart Taylor. And in this story, record snow and sleet and rain are pummeling Vermont, and a wild boar has escaped from an elusive hunting club nearby. When Mercy Carr drops by a friend's cabin, she arrives to find an unknown dead man. So that will be Saturday, February 1st at 4 p.m. at Northshire. On Saturday, February 8th from 2 to 4, Colin Goldberg will be discussing metagraphs. He's the author and artist. He'll be on hand to demonstrate and autograph copies of his book, which is a unique journey into the art of the 21st century. So that should be fun. Sunday, February 9th at 4 p.m., they're having a horror fiction fest with Eric LaRocca, Dennis Mahoney, Clay McLeod Chapman, and E.K. South. Or Sooth, do you know how to say that one?
I do not.
They need to give me pronunciations. Acclaimed horror authors that I just mentioned are going to visit Northshire's Manchester store as part of their New England tour to discuss all things spooky, so very fun. And on Sunday, February 16th at 2 p.m., there'll be a special Valentine's story time in honor of Valentine's Day, and the booksellers will read a selection of both familiar and news stories that are bound to make your little ones fall in love with reading. And again, that's Sunday, February 16th at 2 p.m. So a lot going on. We're so happy that you joined us for our first episode of a new season. And until next time, happy reading.